In this problem, we assume that all variables represent positive real numbers, and we need to simplify the square root of 54 x raised to the 9th y raised to the 15th. If you notice, the expression underneath the radical is a product. I have 54 times x to the 9th times y to the 15th. So I'm going to have to use the product rule for radicals that I've shown here, that basically says if you have the nth root of a times b, it equals the nth root of a times the nth root of b. Well, in our case, it's a square root, so n is 2. Remember, when there's no index showing, the index is a 2. So I'm just going to have the square root of a times b is equal to the square root of a times the square root of b. I'm going to use this to break down my product here, but I'm going to break it down into two separate parts. I'm going to have the square root of 54 times the square root of x to the 9th y to the 15th, because I'm going to kind of deal with this all in one step. So the first thing we need to do is simplify the square root of 54. So we need to factor 54. 54 is 6 times 9. Leave the 9 alone. It's a perfect square. 6 is 2 times 3. Can't factor it anymore. So I need to write 54 as the product of 9 times 2 times 3 is 6. So I'm going to write this as the square root of 9 times the square root of 6 times the square root of x to the 9th y to the 15th. Excuse that bad handwriting, that did say a 9. So what is the square root of 9? The square root of 9 is 3. Can we simplify the square root of 6? No, it's just 2 times 3, can't simplify it. So leave some space, and then I'm just going to write the square root of 6. Now I'm going to deal with the square root of x to the 9th y to the 15th. To do that, I'm going to use the shortcut method. Remember, what's the index on this square root? It's a 2. And the shortcut method says you take the index and you're going to divide it into the exponent on the x, which is a 9. 2 divides into 9 4 times. 4 times 2 is 8. Subtract 9 minus 8 is 1. The quotient 4 is the exponent on the x outside the radical. So I'm going to have x to the 4th outside. The remainder, 1, is the exponent on the x left inside the radical. Repeat the process with the y's. The index is a 2. It divides into the exponent on the y, which is 15. 2 divides into 15 7 times. 7 times 2 is 14. Subtract 15 minus 14 is 1. The quotient 7 is the exponent on the y outside of the radical. The 1 is the exponent on the y inside. So I'm going to have y to the first power inside the radical. Well, we never write x to the first, y to the first. So my answer is going to be 3x to the 4th, y to the 7th times the square root of 6xy.